Hi, thanks for joining me today. This video is going to focus on hip mobility. For those of you who are equestrians, you know that having mobility in the hips and the lower back to follow the motion of the horse at the canter and especially the sitting trot is very important. And we have a tendency to be tight in the hips and the lower back. And I specifically know that I am tight in that area. So we're going to go through a sequence of poses that help to release some tightness and tension in the inner thighs and the outer hips and the lower back. So have a blanket or a firm cushion to sit on for the end. And if you have yoga blocks or even a stack of books to assist you if you need, you can have something handy like that. So we're just going to do a little warm up to start with. So just whatever you have to sit on later, just move that to the end of your mat and come to table pose. Come to all fours. So spread the fingers wide so the wrists are underneath the shoulders, the knees are underneath the hips. Think of drawing the lower ribs towards the hips so we're not just letting the belly drop down to start with. Lengthen through the crown of the head. The gaze is down towards the mat, but we're not letting the head sag down. So think of the crown of the head lengthening forward. So just find neutral spine first. Same spine that we would have if we were seated in the saddle, or for those of you who don't ride, just seated in a chair, a nice neutral position for the spine, natural curve of the spine. And then as we warm up and begin to focus on our breath and breathing, just take a few breaths in and out of the nose, full inhale all the way down into the bottom of the lungs, and full exhale, letting the breath completely release. Think of drawing the lower belly towards the spine to help the breath release. And as you take your next exhale now, press into the hands and the tops of the feet, round the spine up towards the ceiling or sky, coming into a cat pose. Feel that stretch from the tip of the tailbone to the base of the skull. And then as you inhale, send your sit bones back, lengthening the front of the body, letting the belly drop down towards the mat as you lift up and out of the head, neck, and shoulders. So do that a couple times with your breath. Exhale, rounding the spine. So nice flexion here for the spine. And then as you inhale, send the sit bones back, lengthening the front of the body in our extension. So do that a couple more times. Again, just warming up the spine before we start to focus a little bit on the hips. Good. One more. Exhale and inhale. And then this time as you exhale, just come back to neutral, back to that table pose. Now bring your big toes together and bring your knees all the way to the outside edges of the mat and the hands all the way to the outside edges of the mat, coming into a wide knee child pose. Send the hips back towards the heels, let the forehead come down towards the mat. Couple options if your head doesn't come all the way comfortably down. If you feel like you're kind of on the crown of your head here, you can either make fists with the hands and stack the hands up on top. If you have one of those yoga blocks, you can let your forehead rest on a block. Or again, if you have that stack of books, same thing. So make sure first that you're comfortable, because what we want to be able to feel is that stretch in the inner thighs and the outer thighs and the hips and lower back. So a few breaths here. Think of really reaching those fingertips forward. Full breaths in and out of the nose. And notice, as you're here, just check in with where you are feeling the sensation. Everyone's going to feel it in a different place. Some may be feeling it more in the inner thighs, maybe some more in the outer hips, some more in the lower back, or maybe all of those areas. Just inhale and exhale. And then bringing energy into the hands. So press into the palms, press into the tops of the feet. As you inhale, come up through that table pose. And then just as we did a moment ago, lift the heart and the sternum, take the gaze a little forward and up. And then exhale, come back through that neutral spine and then round the spine a little bit back towards that wide knee child pose. So let's do that a couple times. Inhale. Coming up and exhale and rounding back. And again, with the movement, notice where you feel the sensation. Inhale and exhale. Good. One more time like that. Inhale. Lift and lengthen out of the head, neck, and shoulders. And then exhale, rounding the spine, settling back to that wide knee child pose. And now this time, inhale, come up to that neutral position in the wide knees with the wide hands. And then we're going to start to shift the hips a little over to the right, circle back towards that right hip, come through that wide knee child pose, come over to the left, circle the hips over to the left, and come all the way back up. So we're making a great big circle here. Take it nice and slow, move with your breath, and notice sensations that you feel side to side. So now we're asking the body to move a little differently, so you may feel the sensations in a different place. And for example, for me, as I shift over to the left, I'm really feeling that in that inner right thigh. And I'm going to shift over and circle back to the right. I'm feeling inside of the inner left thigh. Good, so just focus on your breath and the movement. And then the next time that you come all the way back up, pause for just a moment. Inhale and exhale, and then go the other direction. So now start to shift your hips over towards the left. Circle back through that wide knee child pose. Shift the hips and the torso over to the right and come back up. So again, keep that going. Notice if this direction feels different. We're not symmetrical, just like our horses aren't symmetrical. So doing something the opposite way or second side might feel totally different. Inhale. And exhale. Really think of syncing the breath with your movement. So maybe inhaling as you're coming up, and then exhale as you circle back down and around. Good, so once more. Inhaling and exhaling. And then settle back to that wide knee child pose again. Let the forehead come down. Notice if there's any different sensations in the hips and the lower back. Inhale and exhale, and then press into the hands, come back up to your table pose, bring the knees back under the hips, the wrists back under the shoulders. So now we're going to do a little side lunge to get a stretch out through the hips a little bit. So take the right leg, step the right leg to the outside of the right hand, towards the outside edge of your mat, and turn your toes a little to the outside and have your heel a little bit in front of your knee. Hands are underneath the shoulders, and then we're going to shift our weight forward into that front foot. So the reason we want the foot to be a little in front of the knee is when we shift forward, I don't want your knee to shoot way past your ankle. So we want to protect the knee and the ankle here. So shift that weight a little forward, just feel that sensation. Again, you may feel inner thigh, outer thigh, just notice where you feel it. And now shift your weight back and a little bit to your left, like you're reaching back a little towards the left corner of your mat. So keep that going a little bit with the breath. Inhale, shift forward to the right front foot, and then exhale and shift back to the left. And as you shift back, you're probably feeling a little bit in that hamstring too. Hamstrings, tight hamstrings can inhibit the movement in the lower back especially, which can affect the hips. Good, so once more here, inhale and exhale. And now come back to neutral in that side lunge. So we're still having that heel lead the knee just a little bit, but now we're going to circle the hips here. So as you circle the hips, just find a movement, find a size that feels comfortable for you. It might be a small circle, might get a little bigger as you circle. It might feel more like an oval than a circle. That's okay. Just find a movement and make sure you're breathing. And again, notice where you're feeling this. And then thinking about that when we do the second side. And now notice which direction you are circling, and then we're going to go the opposite direction. Good. And notice if that, again, does that feel different when you go the other direction? And then come back to neutral. We're going to take this right leg, we're going to sweep it all the way behind us off the left side of the mat. Flex the foot, press through the heel, lengthen through the crown of the head. Feel that nice stretch on the right side of the body and the outside of that right hip. And then gently turn and look over your left shoulder. Look for that right foot behind you. And as you do that, make sure you keep the crown of the head lengthening forward. Don't just let the head collapse down and around. So still keep that nice length in your spine. Another breath here, inhale and exhale. And now bring that right leg behind you, right knee back in. And we're going to do one pose in between to check our symmetry side to side. So bring your hands in front of your shoulders, curl your toes under, lift the knees, send your sit bones up and back, come to a bent knee downward facing dog, and notice if the right hip feels any different than the left after that little sequence, because we're going to do that same thing second side with that side lunge, and just notice if you feel any different side to side. You may or may not, but just notice. And then release the knees back down to the mat. Bring the wrists again under the shoulders, knees under the hips, and now step the left foot towards the left front corner of your mat. Again, wrists are right under the shoulders, knee is a little behind the heel. So if I had my knee lined up like we do a lunge, when we shifted forward, my knee would shoot way over my ankle. So I want that foot out a little in front to start with. So finding neutral here, and then shift that weight a little forward towards that front left foot, and then shift the weight a little back and to the right. So again, find that movement, and this side might feel totally different. Usually one of our legs is stronger, which usually means one hip is a little tighter. So notice how that feels. And again, if you are in this pose and it's a little too much sensation, you can always take those blocks or that stack of books that you have and bring your hands up onto those for a little less sensation in the hips as you're working through this sequence. So again, your option for that. Good. Now come back to that neutral position again with the wrist still right underneath the shoulders and that heel, left heel a little in front of the knee, and then circle the hips here. And as you circle the hips, again, think of difference in sensation side to side. Inhale and exhale. Make sure you're breathing. Good. And then notice again which direction your circle is going, and then circle the other direction. And again, that circle can be small. It can get bigger as the movement becomes comfortable for you. It can stay at that smaller size. Just make sure you're breathing. And then come back again to neutral. And then we're going to take this left leg, sweep it all the way behind us off the right side of the mat. Press through the heel, adjust the wrist under the shoulders if you need, lengthen through the crown of the head, turn and look over that right shoulder for that left foot back there. Find that nice lengthened stretch through the left side of the body and that nice opening through the ribs and the outside of that left hip. Inhaling and exhaling. And then let the spine come back to alignment first, and bring that left leg back in, left knee back down. And once again, let's take our downward facing dog. So hands in front of the shoulders, shoulders distance apart, curl those toes under, sit bones up and back. So notice how downward facing dog feels now. Any difference? Maybe the hips felt a little different in your first downward facing dog. Maybe they didn't, and that's okay, but just notice what sensation you feel. And again, this is a nice neutral position for the spine and the hips. Inhale and exhale, and then release the knees down to the mat. Crisscross the feet behind you and carefully sit back onto your bum. And then let's come with our blanket or cushion, whatever you have to sit on. So place that behind you, lift your sit bones up onto the edge of your blanket or cushion. And then we're going to come into Baddha Konasana, butterfly or cobbler's pose. So soles of the feet together, knees to the outside. So find a position here that's comfortable for you. If having your heels in a little closer like this really makes you round your spine, then bring your feet out a little further, or even out a little further, because we want to think we're getting a stretch here no matter where we put the legs, but we want to not collapse and round our spine to get our legs in a position. So find a comfortable position. Again, your sit bones are up on that blanket to help keep that neutral curve in the lower back. Hands can rest on the knees, the shins, the ankles, or down to the feet. But if you have to round your spine to get down to the feet, then come here, which is where I'm going to be. So nice length in the spine, widen across the collarbones. Feel that nice stretch. Think of pressing the soles of the feet together. Feel that nice stretch in the inner thighs, the outer hips. Find your breath. Inhale. Maybe close the eyes for a few moments. Inhaling and exhaling. Think of the collarbones being nice and wide. Think of that nice neutral position for the spine. Make sure the head is right over top of the shoulders. Shoulders are right over top of the hips. Inhale and exhale. And then gently let the eyes open. And then thinking of hinging at your hip, we're just going to come just a tiny bit forward. So hinge at the hip. Think of leading with the sternum and imagine that you're looking like out into a pond or a puddle, somewhere where you're seeing your reflection. Inhale and exhale. So don't collapse to do that. Think of nice length in your spine. Think still widening the collarbones. You feel a little bit more stretch in that inner thigh. And only go as far as that stretch feels good for you. Call it the Goldilocks stretch. Not too little, not too much, just right. And that might be that you moved forward a millimeter, and that's fine. Inhale and exhale. Every time you inhale, the spine lengthens. And as you exhale, think of the spine, maybe again, that hip hinging a little bit, but still that length in the spine. And then gently come all the way back up. Bring your fingertips behind you. Bring your feet as wide as your mat, heels to the edges of the mat, toes to the outside. And actually go ahead and slide off whatever you were seated on for the moment. And then just let the knees drop from side to side. A little release for those hips. Still think of keeping the spine nice and long. Good. And then gently come back to a comfortable seated position. So thanks so much for joining me today. Again, that's a quick sequence that you can do if you feel tight in the hips and the lower back. And again, it's really important. And I know specifically for me, I have a tendency when I am in the saddle to grip with my leg. So being able to get that nice stretch in the inner thigh and that release in the outer hip can help you if you do that same thing. And for those of you who don't ride, this is, or have ridden and are not actively riding right now, these are great stretches because we do have a tendency to carry a lot of tightness and tension in the hips and the lower back. So whether you're a rider or not, those stretches will help you. So thanks again for joining me today, and please subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and check out my website. Information is in the comments below. So have a great day, and I hope to see you sometime soon in the saddle or on the mat. Thanks. Bye-bye.